Welcome back. For those of you returning, welcome to those new to my channel. So this is the fresh out of 24 going coastal. You can see I did end up receiving my caliber biometrics replacement. So this is the second module that I received. The first one, don't know what happened to it. I'm hoping to get a response back from them and finding out what happened to it to make sure that it's not a defect or something I did wrong. Because at the end of the day, the way this module works is it captures your inhales and exhales, which also includes a lot of moisture. And the way it processes everything is that's got to go through different chambers and holes to get to the appropriate sensors that detects how much oxygen you are breathing in and how much oxygen, carbon dioxide, and the ratio and everything to as you're exhaling out. So as you can see in the chat here, just kind of going back and forth, there's that person that just commented, the bath salt sprinter. I had to look him up because I was like, I've seen the name before. I'd actually run across a video of his the night before. And he is a strong rider. So when I saw that he was in this, I was like, all right, looks like I won't be, killing it this race. At least I didn't think I would. And so this is my first race after my rescoring, initial rescoring, the V2, and then they went V3. And as you can see, as we start to kick off here, they're talking about doing 1,000 watts, going out the gate, which I, laughed at, but definitely was not going to do. Considering the variety of people that were in here, this was basically mostly, Cat C, Cat D guys. Looking at Zwift Power, it was a lot of Cat Cs that looked like probably got reclassified. And so there's that one person you see off in the far left distance that went out and just shot out hard, super hard. There was a couple of people pushing up, so I was like, I didn't go off as hard as I thought I would. But then I started looking at how the group was going. I was like, all right, I need to put out a little bit more effort and hold this a little bit longer in order to, not fall too far behind. Because no matter how the race goes, if you fall off the back of the group, it becomes too hard to catch back up. So just holding my pace here for a little bit as I get up towards the front group, and then I start to back off the power, because that is, ultimately that's how you race these races. Is they start off strong, and then next thing you know, they are, the group is coming back together, which is basically what's happening right now. And so getting back to the device I'm wearing. So the reason why I wanted to wear it on this race is because one of the things that it calculates, because it's taking in your oxygen rate and your oxygen exchange, because it's calculating your oxygen exchange, oxygen and carbon dioxide, it can determine what kind of fuel source you're using in the moment. Now, it doesn't give you an exact second by second, but it does kind of like a reverse calculation, as it averages out the last minute or so of data. Or at least if I remember correctly, that's kind of how it works. But at the end of the day, it's averaging out, your breath and kind of calculating your carbon dioxide and oxygen ratio. And so I wanted to see at race pace, in a reasonable race, because I figured being with Zwift recategorizing me into the 180 to 320 or 350 pen. Because my race score dropped that much in the V2 when they did the V2 update. It went back up on the V3 because partly because of this race, but also because of the recalculation. And so I was like, you know what? Let me see how they did. I immediately did not think they got it right. My initial seed score that they gave me was 332. So in a way, I was still going to be at the top of this group. I checked my eVelo score on the Zwift Racing app website, and it put me as coming in second place. So I was like, okay, maybe I might do well in this race. Some of the other guys that were in the race, according to Zwift Power, have some pretty good power, have some pretty good numbers. right around the same score as me, or maybe a little bit less. So I knew it was going to be an interesting race at the end of the day. And, so I wanted to see in a reasonable race what my breath data would look like. What does it produce? What does it mean? Because knowing how to fuel, knowing what fuels you're using while you're racing uh, is important, especially, as I lead up to FRR, which I'll be doing in January. We're doing stage 1 and stage 2. My plan is to do stage 1 and stage 2 December 30th, because that gives me a 6-day window, roughly a 6-day window in between the um, the first 2 stages and then the third stage, because the first 2 stages are going to be used to calculate which groups we go into, and then from then on out, it's essentially stage 3 to 8 directly. And stage 8 is it's going to be tough. It's the 4 horsemen plus a few extra bumps, which is going to take us out to, essentially 6 climbs and 92 kilometers with 2,200 meters of elevation. My goal is to not only lose weight, but but also get stronger for that specific stage. And so this is part of that strategy, is understanding what kind of fueling I need in order to sustain an effort like that. Because I fully expect it to be a 4 to 5 hour effort at best case scenario, because it's such a long stage. On a flat surface, I can do 100 kilometers in about 3.5 to 4 hours. The last time I did it on Zwift was around that time. But with all the elevation gain, it's definitely going to take me longer, especially knowing that the last time I did the Alpe du Zwift, it took me 67 minutes, and that's at the current weight that I am now, which is 85 kilograms. So I know that at minimum, that's going to take me a little over an hour to just do the Alpe, not including all the other climbs that we have to do. So just kind of cruising along here, and I'm going to fast forward to the next segment because nothing happens essentially from here on out. All right, so here we go to the backside of the desert waterfall, and you see I had to put a little bit of effort out there because this front group started to get away, and I did not want to be part of that split I saw happening. Luckily, it didn't end up splitting. As you can see, there's some guys still pulling a little bit hard off the front, but ultimately it looked like maybe some people just either wanted to see what the group was made of or wanted to spice things up a bit, because this being the going coastal route is for the most part flat. There's really not much in terms of elevation gain, maybe 100 meters or so. And it is just depending on how hard the group goes, which, as you can see from my little fitness graph down at the bottom, we're doing okay. We're pushing FTP numbers, but not quite always. Kind of high. I would say zone 3, zone 4 more than anything from me. And so that's ultimately how this goes in a stage like this. It's super flat. So the focus is always going to be, what kind of power do I need to produce in order to stay with the group and ideally stay in the draft, which I got great advice from Bren, who fantastic racer. He always encourages me to not only push harder, but kind of coaching me through some of the live races. If you've seen any of the recent ones, you'll see him in the chat. And so he was, encouraging me, like, stay to the front third of the group, especially when it comes to finishing sprints, or when it comes to managing breakaways, because that is, I think, where I've built a little bit of a specialty is bridging breakaways, because I can push hard for about a minute or so, which can help me catch up or help me bring the group up. But at the end of the day, that's not where I want to, that's not what I want to essentially stay at. I want to be able to, maintain that consistent power for longer than a minute or so. So this is just a reminder to know the course you are on, because I thought we were going to go right. And I was mentally prepared for going up that climb, knowing that it's little slopes like that where it's 3-ish%, for a good minute or two that people end up using that to break away and split apart the group. And so mentally I was planning on going right, but ultimately we ended up going left, which this, as we come out of the desert here and start to go through this barrier, these little hills can split up a group if you're not paying attention. But in my case, being at the front, which I didn't want to be off the front completely, but since I was at the front, just kind of holding myself there, I knew that with the bike that I had, I was gonna roll over these hills with no issues, and then just kind of stay where I was at. So now that we're out of the desert and getting into the coastal roadway, this is where the effort starts to pick up. So generally, I will, depending on the group I'm riding with, I will end up getting dropped here because this, again, this, 1, 2, 3%, rise that goes on seemingly forever, people will start to fall off the back little by little because the group always, as any climb, the group will start to put, put the hammer down a little bit and the effort starts to climb. But luckily this time, I'm already towards the front, so I did my best to hold on to that. You can see, again, you can see from my effort graph where I kind of needed to put in the effort. And as we start to go up this little hill here, knowing that, it's going to start to climb a little bit in the 1, 3%, I think it maxes out between 3 and 4%, somewhere around there, as we go through these hills. That was my focus, to stay on the front, stay close to the front, especially knowing that we had two sprints, the woodland sprint, which is coming up, and then the Sasquatch sprint, which finishes off the race. So as we come up to the sprint here, I see a couple people go off the front. I start, pushing up the watts as well, because again, I don't want to get dropped. This is the second spot here where most people often get dropped at, and you see the group splitting apart quite a bit. But, my goal was to not try and set any PRs. You saw one guy there pop up with he had the ghost power up. And so my goal was to just stay towards the front. The guys off the front started easing up. I guess they, couldn't hold that power or didn't want to. And so I just, maintained a little bit harder effort, stayed in the, zone 5-ish range for me, upper zone 4, zone 5, range for me. And luckily the group stayed together on the front. And, even though those, some splitting off in the back, you see that we still, if you look at the group graph to the right, we've got about 21 people that stayed together on that, through that sprint. And now, we basically just kind of continue this back and forth of little efforts off the front, but nothing that actually sticks until we get to the final sprint. So now here's where I thought it would all start to fall apart. I figured people were going to, as you can see, we kind of pushed the effort, and I, ended up staying on the back of this front group. As the group starts to split apart, we've got, about 16, 17 people that, ultimately stayed and kind of created that, 1 or 2 second split. And I thought people were going to already start to push the effort, but nobody did. Everyone seemed to be waiting for the line to actually start sprinting. So, I knew that I could hold the effort for a little bit longer. So right about, 400 meters to go, I, hit my power up and launched. And while this, obviously isn't the max effort that I can do, I was able to not only hold my effort for longer, but ultimately beat the guys that I honestly thought I would get beat by. And then I looked at the distance they were behind me, and I knew that they weren't going to catch up even if I coasted all the way to the line. And there we go. First across the line, second place person. I honestly thought the second place person was going to get me, but he was essentially 2/10 of a second behind me, just under 3/10 of a second behind me. And that's how it went. I was completely shocked that I was able to hold my 15-second effort went up quite a bit, because again, I was shocked that I could hold that for as long as I did. My 1 minute power, I believe, also went up. So I was excited to have finished. Here we go. I'm finally, been able to take the thing off. I didn't want to stop it right away, but at the same time, I was ready to take it off. It didn't restrict my breathing a whole lot, but because it has to control how much air goes in and out, it does restrict your breathing a little bit. And so it, you know, looking at the data, the app ended up crashing on me, which I wasn't too excited about because I lost probably the last 10 or so minutes, 10, 15 minutes of data. But basically from the beginning part of the, race, and ultimately the first, maybe not even last 10 minutes. Um, Probably lost the last 5 minutes or data or so, looking at what time I crossed the line. But looking at the graph, you can see that I basically went from, fat burning, to burning glucose, and just that, was 100% spiked where I was burning glucose the whole race. Ultimately, I'm going to start doing uh, other tests, other, training, workouts to help me really narrow down to see whether or not I can, how much time I'm spending burning fat while I'm working out versus burning glucose, to then ultimately tailor my my nutrition. And then the other thing that I will say, just with the data that I've been collecting with this, is that it's helped me identify the fact that Zwift um, overestimates my calories, sometimes quite a bit, sometimes like 100 plus calories, quite a bit. So I'm gonna do a separate video on all of that, kind of, because I wanted to break it down a little bit more and kind of give a more of a formal review. Again, even though I'm not sponsored by Caliber, they didn't send me this. This was just something that I decided to purchase, because I wanted to really understand where I'm at, and truly take full control over my fitness. So hope you guys enjoyed. Again, because of this, my Zwift racing score went up. I'm back now in the 350 to 520 category. So I'll be racing there, and I will look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.